Live
from the live from downtown New York.
Live. Yeah, we're live.
We're not really in New York. Spoiler. We can't tell you we're at an undisclosed location.
Live from underneath two people fucking.
Yeah, they're hiding it well.
Yeah, just subtle thrusts.
I meant how they barely display affection for each other.
Oh yeah, it's very awkward when we're around. They're like, you know,
don't look too interested.
Touch, like, that's nice beef. Toss the salad. Oh, don't say that. Let's go. You want gravy floating with me? Not from the
Yeah.
I just think when I walk into the house and go, fuck, I have to train my female employees like dogs. She's just like any sort of romance that he had planned was.
See, I find it ridiculous to suggest that he has a romance planned. The amount of forethought and social awareness required for that.
Or that I rate my female employees as
Do
employees.
you rate your female? You can at least rape the male ones too.
Whoa.
Sexist.
I only rate them with their consent.
It's like, it's not a forced distribution. It's a you can request a distribution. Yeah. So
Live.
4 minutes of the so this is the SL podcast.
SL, yeah.
Standing for
Not the start of sleep. Slap.
cock slap. Spirit level.
Spirit level.
Spirit level. Because if you ever needed a proof that the earth wasn't round, you may or may not use a spirit level.
Construction.
It depends if you know what.
Concreatures have had the answers for generations.
It's why they drink.
And no one's
It's why they drink, because they know you can just fall off the edge.
It's why they fill their body full of pies.
You pay
Because
one.
it represents, the top of the pie represents their perspective on reality.
Isn't really the pie just a microcosm of the earth itself?
Exactly, that's what they eat.
You know, like you pave one street too many over, you can fall off the edge.
With every pie, they're paying homage to baby Jesus.
So Concreatures is really a religious term. It's Concretia.
Potentially.
The Church of Concrete.
Yeah.
I'd go to the Church of Concrete. That sounds badass.
Because they pour their concrete all over you, and
that's something else. That's something else. That's different.
That's usually tampering with the.
That's more Waco. That's more Waco than Seventh Day Adventist. So we'll come back to that in a different podcast.
So yeah, we're basically something we haven't quite figured out yet, but
like my sexuality,
definitely influenced by the lifestyles and machinations of Concreatures, and that they probably have more answers than what most people would give them credit for.
It's because they can't speak.
Yeah.
What's this podcast gonna cover? Why don't you read it off the board for us?
So it's going to cover part 2 intro. Oh no, that's the heading for what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Got it.
Cut. Cut. Damn it! Had to import the stuff and we still can't get it.
So we cover airsoft.
Yeah, we're it's
better late than never.
Ventilate than never. So we've been waiting for about the last 5 minutes for that.
So airsoft.
So we're big fans of guns here. Yeah. Because guns don't kill people.
We're big fans of anything that resembles something that we can't have.
It's a porn. Moving on. Yeah, big fan of guns. Now we may or may not be in the US.
A life outside the garage.
Yeah. So
airsoft, yeah, big fans of airsoft, because basically, if we could buy the real thing, if we could get a hold of the real thing, we would. All things airsoft. Even diameter of the pellets.
You're overselling it. Move on.
Am I?
Politics.
And how you can influence politics with airsoft. We're not a violent movement. We're not Antifa.
No, we're mostly not moving. So
yeah,
it's very lazy on the movement front.
Science.
So
we're spelt right, but science.
Well, the
seance, is that what you're trying to say? Seances.
It kind of is. It kind of mixes with the second one. The C is kind of The C's sort of here, like the C didn't really make it.
Yeah, what's that when you just have to imagine that the C's there? What they call that?
French.
Yeah.
So
spirituality.
Well, it's no science. So we're both men of science.
Yeah.
You more so.
How many articles have you published?
8. How many good articles have you published?
Not on your own blog.
8. I'm gonna back down from this shit. So, but like I was saying, you more so than me. We're both men of science. We both appreciate the non-prose written word.
Yeah.
Because prose is for romantics, and romantics are fags.
Prose is a waste of time.
Yeah. Fags is not a hate term. It's what I call my cat.
Yeah, because I call a bundle of sticks before I light it on fire.
Well, I call her a faggot because she's a small bit of meat. It tastes delicious. Moving on. So, yeah, we'll both go through...
It's in relation to Faye.
Mostly. We'll go through any interesting science articles in general. Yeah. How it informs the human condition.
Yeah. We're working towards a special guest, Professor X. If there ever was a man of science, it was Professor X.
Professor X is a learned
He's a recluse. He's a recluse, however, and to draw him out of the shadows of the disc that is our existence. It's going to take a bit of work, so just bear with us as we work on that one. Spirituality is really it's really at the heart of a lot of people. They for those that have hearts.
For those that have hearts, it's something that I feel very strongly about. Yeah. Actually, because I think spirituality is where filthy collectivist materialists fall down. They don't have anything. They don't really have anything actually guiding them that's positive in their life. They're always seeing the irony is they always see the negative side of life if you think about it, because they're always saying about how X, Y, Z is unfair rather than
their whole view is unironic nihilism. So
well, yeah. Well, they're always the victim as well. Yeah, exactly. So no, spirituality really is nothing too much about religion as such.
Coconut oil or anything like that.
There's a lot of coconut oil. Basically, if spirituality can be eaten, then we'll discuss it on this channel. Because then it gets closer to your heart.
Yeah.
That's why you get heartburn.
Is it?
When you eat, yeah.
Right.
Because it powers up your heart.
Got it.
Same as burning in your loins. You know why you get burning in your loins? It's viruses.
Africa.
Yeah, that's viruses. Yeah, shouldn't. That's you don't want that either. Yeah, that's fine. And then any type of war gaming. So Games Workshop in particular, we're that cool.
I feel like we have to talk about it just to justify the amount of money that we spend on it. Really. So
yeah, I mean, if it helped, more money on drugs than I do on Games Workshop. It's a lie. I also lie a lot. So, I wish I'd spend more money on drugs than Games Workshop. So we'll go through anything like that on the channel as well. That's pretty much
it.
What we're looking to cover. I think that the politics is going to be interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's always
shit posting.
A lot of it going on. So
shit posting on the commentators.
It just seems to be driving a lot of interest presently. It just seems, with all the things that are happening in the UK, with all the things that are happening in the US, like I can't remember a time where politics has been so prominent.
Well, I think we're reaching a bit of an inflection point with certain things, and people are naturally recognizing that inflection point. So in the US and in certain European countries, unrestrained immigration, it might be certain social policies that are, leagues apart from what was previously set in stone otherwise. And people are just realizing that some of those things are kind of some of those lines are being crossed, and that's not to say that it's inherently a negative thing, but I'm just saying those lines are being crossed and people are picking up on that. Whether it's the fact that in Canada they want to be able to take your kids away if you don't allow
regender them. If
you don't regender them, people are just saying, that is that's a line being crossed. That
even the BBC had that. They've got that documentary series in the moment. Should we stop our children from being girls and boys?
No, because we need the species.
Google it. Have you seen it? Have you seen that documentary?
Did you just say Google it?
Yeah.
I will not Google it, whatever it is. Otherwise, I'll get that burning in my loins.
We shall not speak its name.
I don't want to get that burning in my...
search engine that shall not be named.
If I get that burning in my mouth again, probably it'd be bad.
That's the bleach.
That's just the... I've been having to drink a lot of bleach and wash it into my eyes following some of the stuff that we've been reading more recently. But
so anyway, we digress. Politics.
Anyway, so that's the intro. That's the intro to the podcast. That's what you can expect. All of it in terrible sound. But it'll be recorded for your...
That'll improve if you smash that like button.
That may or may not be fake news.
And make sure you smash it before you listen. That's how the big shills do it, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
Smash!
We're like 3 minutes in and saying
we just subtly like put in smash and like into every sentence that we use. You know, like
that's a smashing idea.
Can you?
I like it.
Do you like the way that Google set out?
Do I like the way Google set out?
Yeah. I think it's smashing.
I like what you did there.
Do you listen to Smash Mouth?
I don't.
Somebody.
I don't know them. There's a comma in there. But that
was very feminine of you.
Point is, I'm just trying to be your foil here. The point is that that's the intro done.
So smash that like button.
That's it. First ever podcast.
Don't fucking admit that. You know you put way too much pressure on us.
Way too much pressure. I don't know if you can put more pressure on sucking, but yeah, I guess. I mean,
you can always put more pressure on sucking.
Well, I'm just saying it's always going to be bad. Like your first time's always going to be bad. Should we add that? Sucking. Yeah. Should we add that? That's another discussion topic. Your first homosexual experience.
Put it on the board.
Could be voluntary.
Will it happen?
Could be voluntary. Could be not. Depends if you did time. So we'll do
first.
FHE, first homosexual experience.
That's the FA.
Yeah. Not that that's racist or transphobic or which one is it? Homophobic?
Yeah. Muslimphobic.
Yeah, Muslimphobic. yeah,
Islamophobic. It's not Islamic phobic.
Well, we're just diving right into another problem. I mean, Islam is homophobic.
True, but that isn't.
Well, yeah. So, yeah, it's weird. It's apparently... Well, the West has figured out which one it likes more, brown people or gays.
Maybe it's like... It's homosexual dissonance, where...
It's like we said...
Like you have your first homosexual experience, but you don't like it, but you become phobic towards it.
By the way, I just want to say, yeah, not all brown people are Muslims.
Right.
Yeah. And not all Muslims are brown people. Some of them are Sonny Bill Williams.
Right, that's true.
Which is a quintessential example of a Muslim.
He's good at sports.
They're good at sports, were previously not Muslim.
Yeah.
And
got tricked and lost somewhere along the way.
Occasionally cheat.
Occasionally cheat.
Rugby.
Oh, rugby. Oh, you occasionally cheat, yeah.
Yeah.
Occasionally get sent off for terrorism. I mean... So what's this you got up on the board?
All right, yeah, let's go through the list. So the first one is Antifa is a terrorist group. : discuss.
Did you see that thing I sent you? That if you added T to the end of Antifa, they would lose the end of their supporters?
Yeah. Next one is...
I fucking stole that. I didn't come up with it. Just throwing that out there.
Dude, like you were saying, don't throw out what is going to be good for the listeners. Don't be self-deprecating for no reason.
What's the plural of zero?
The plural of zero
is technically there's 0 listeners.
Well, at least I'll have to listen to it just to normalise the volume. Right.
It better be one like, motherfucker. You better smash that like button.
I'm moving on. The Prey video game. Do you know the Prey video game?
No, I don't.
You don't know the Prey the video game?
This is like a Is it like a video game for pedophiles or something?
Well, I'm sure some of the players are adult men. So,
does that mean? Right, no, I haven't heard of it.
No, okay. We probably won't pick that one. It's similar to System Shock.
Right.
Have you ever played that? No.
I've watched you play it, I think.
Yeah, so we'll just move on. Shake ideas. So green, vegan, nutritional shake ideas.
Right. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
We can come up with a few of those.
Yeah, good for the listeners who care about their bowel movements.
Right.
And their endocrine system health and their vitamin profile.
And animals and shit, I guess. That's the...
Well, I guess, yeah.
Being pasty white. Being, like, accepted by your hipster friends.
Don't slide into racism this early into the podcast. Let it mellow.
I didn't know hipster was a race.
Let's
the world's moved on since...
Pasty white. Pasty white's a race. It's called Ireland.
I thought it was like a consequence of veganism.
Maybe they should be their own protected class. You think?
Let's not go that far.
All right. The next one we're also skipping, which I told you about. It's the taxi driver one. Taxi driver, the mental health and mental state of the taxi driver anti-hero.
I was actually interested in that, but then it sounds like a good topic if someone had watched the movie.
You remembered you didn't know about it.
Yeah.
That's fine, man. Yeah,
that's the one where he stares at the mirror, isn't it?
That's the one. Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
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 Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
You talking to me?
Yeah.
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 That's the one. We'll do it next time. There's a lot. Games Workshop pricing.
What's that little... That's the one I was actually trying to read. Like, I skipped the taxi driver and I was, what, star?
No, that's the mental state. It's the next line.
Mental state. Got
it.
Right.
Yeah, let me... Yeah, there you go. It's part of that.
Right. That helps.
Yeah. Okay, Games Workshop pricing.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
Yeah. Anybody that likes having less of a life, we can talk about Games Workshop. Yeah. Gab AI being removed from the Google Play Store.
I'm actually interested in talking about how they recover from that. Because they haven't gone away, they haven't given up, but you just wonder if it's like one of those situations where they're drowning and they know it, but they're just in denial. I don't know.
Yeah. Let's definitely talk about that one. It's also interesting to see Google yet again copy Amazon. Apple. Apple took it off their store first.
Yeah, that's right. Well, Apple has always been more progressive than Google.
Exactly.
Because
it drinks more vegan shakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
there is some links to all these discussion points. Yeah.
So Google in general and how it's obviously trying to really stifle either conservative viewpoints or even just alternate viewpoints.
Yeah.
So again, direct link to the one above. Then the next one is communism and its socialist aspects, and National Socialism and its socialist aspects, and how people don't seem to see any connection between the two whatsoever.
Well, there is none, is there?
Well, deaths, lots and lots of deaths, and media spin, but in opposite directions, it seems. The next one, military IQ requirement at 83.
Yeah,
and the impacts that appreciating that would have for wider society.
Yeah, I'm actually interested in this one because of the Australian situation.
With the women?
Yeah, with the women. Yeah.
Well, they have a good average.
The female soldiers. Yeah.
Yeah. Got to be very careful what the next several sentences are.
Well, what I was going to say was that there's generally, more men in the lower echelons of the bell curve.
But they're concreatures.
So it's concreatures. which ironically would create amazing warriors, people who have no respect for life. I'm sure would have nothing against taking it. Are
you talking about concreatures?
Yeah. Yeah.
You better describe what concreatures are.
Yeah, concreatures are creatures that concrete. Go to.
You almost call them people.
Almost. I had to stop myself. Because they look like people, generally larger people,
larger people.
Yeah.
Like
they look
spherically or
spherically.
Or...
they look like people, but the kind of people that put lots of pies in their mouth.
Are you going to ask me to type in Concreature?
Yeah, well, they don't use the internet, so I don't know if...
Can they not be photographed in the wild?
Welcome to the home of Concreatures. Yeah, I think you have to go like Urban Dictionary, because that's like skateboarding, so...
Yeah, I think Concreatures might give us something very, very different.
Yeah.
Look, you're going to have to... I have no idea what's happening here. You're going to have to explain this to the listeners.
Yeah, I can explain what a concreature is, yeah. We can come back to that.
You want to come back to that?
Do you want to explain
Yeah, I think
now?
at this point would be good.
Well, I mean, the best way to understand what a concreature is...
Don't pull your punches either.
Is to go to any sort of run-of-the-mill construction site where they're at the concrete laying phase or stage of the project, and just sit back and fucking observe the animals that just hover around the concreting machine, eating pies, smoking cigarettes, drinking before they've knocked off, just literally putting as much waste into their bodies as they possibly can, on top of all the concrete dust that they inhale throughout the day.
And is that like vaping?
Well, it's like what vaping would be if it was dangerous.
Okay.
So, and just listen to the conversations. They use what do you call like and it and those types of... They replace like and, to, it, all those type of words with fuck, cunt, and those sorts of things. They
replace and or they replace
I mean
with fuck and cunt.
Yeah, they just wherever they can throw it in, wherever there's a breathing space, they just fill that empty vacuum with expletives. But I mean they're beautiful in their own way because they're so blissfully unaware of their own like uniqueness,
existence.
Yeah,
is that what you were going to say?
They're like Neanderthals are to Homo erectus.
How dare you?
Concreatures to Homo sapiens are the Neanderthals to Homo erectus.
How dare you? I'm not getting many images for Concreatures, unfortunately. Yeah, I think that might be more of a local.
More of a colloquialism.
Local Australian.
Site. Yeah.
It's a shame. Yeah. It's a shame. We're gonna have to do some primary research here, I think.
Yeah, well, I think I'm just to introduce you to one.
Well, there's no need to capture them from their habitat. Let's just go the safari route.
Yeah.
And picture them afar from with telephoto lenses. And we'll do that.
Yeah. I will need to get a guide, someone who's well versed in the construction site industry. Who knows how to both spot and avoid them, but you just essentially have to follow the empty cans to the work site, basically.
Gosh. All right. Then the next one is how much fun can you have with a pet monkey, and is it smarter than a child?
I just feel like a pet monkey would be fun until it starts fucking your shit up. Like it'd just be like a 2-year-old child on steroids. Like any wires it can pull, all the things you want it to play with, it doesn't.
Well, there's the entry point right there. You said 2-year-old child. Is that correct?
What, in terms of its behaviour, that it just likes to explore and bullshit.
Yeah. Do you think 2's about it?
Well, did the listeners know what you were implying there? Because they can't see the board. So, and you only just said, "What would you do with a pet monkey?" And insert the second part of that conversation.
I did. I said, is it smarter than a child?
Oh, did you?
Yeah. Or
God.
Yeah.
I hope the listeners are more tuned in than I am.
Well, the listeners might not have had, half a beer, so it takes the edge off. Yeah. So we'll come back to that. The last topic: mountains.
Oh.
If the Earth is round, why don't they slide off?
Yeah.
Because it's gravity.
Yeah. Tectonic plates have something going on there about tectonic plates.
See, they do
holding on for their dear life.
See, they do slide.
Yeah,
but the mountains don't. Because I've looked at a mountain for like several minutes, and nothing happened.
Right. But did you try several hours?
I've got shit to do, Barry.
Just feel like a couple of minutes, in terms of Earth's geology of 6,000 years. That
yeah, correct. Newton figured that out. I mean, yeah, a couple of minutes. I would expect at least a few. Just a valley to form, maybe.
Yeah.
Or a plateau to plateau.
Volcano or two. Because if they're going to be moving that much, that's diamonds.
So we have a target that will be a future recurring guest, possibly, to the podcast, which we will call. Just thought of it. We will call Professor X. and the X might even be a cross, you could argue.
Ooh.
But Professor X is well versed in all matters etheric, dome adjacent, extraplanar, beyond the disc.
Yeah.
So he's really. This is really a topic we should revert back to when we've got his wise counsel.
Yeah, I feel like he would have watched more documentaries than time we've spent thinking about this question.
So I think we need to come back to this topic.
He's a avid consumer of fine YouTube documentaries.
I think of him more of as a thought leader.
Leading thought astray.
He took the terminology of planar geometry literally.
Yeah.
The curved surfaces can't exist.
Managed to turn illogic into a virtue.
So, well, for him, it always was his highest virtue. So, yeah, we'll come back to that topic. So we have a lot of topics to pick from. So even if we chalk off these ones for being not suitable, that leaves us with, and that was basically linked. Right. That leaves us with a lot of topics. So we can pick any of these at leisure.
So why don't we just start from the top? Anti-fat errorism.
Yep, anti-fat errorism. So all the ways that ANTIFAT are an error.
Right.
Which is every
Well,
way.
how about we start with, in what way are they right?
Well, because we need to talk about something. So so to set the scene, obviously we know what's been going on with we, as in the literal we, know what's been going on with Antifa and essentially the violence and the riots that they've been doing. And then
is it Antifa or Antifa?
I really don't care enough about them in a respectful way to care how you pronounce their stupid name.
Right. Just tone down the bias a little bit. I thought we were an objective podcast.
Well, we are objective, but in terms of pronouncing their name right when they're essentially criminals, I'm like, if you know what I mean, we're good to go. So the issue, obviously, is the violence they've been causing, and then we know the stuff that's been going on in Charlottesville. And
yeah, they play basketball there, right?
They play basketball there. I have no idea what you're implying by that.
The Charlotte Hornets.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're the Bobcats now. It was just a childhood memory thing because back when I was in primary school.
Well, Hornets. Why were they renamed from Hornets to Bobcats?
I don't know. I don't know, but I think it's just something that happens in because they're all franchises. So franchises get sold and they move around. So because they're privately owned, I think that's probably got something to do with it. But it's just a throwback to my primary school years when we used to collect basketball cards, and it was like Johnson was like one of the big Charlotte players, and so everyone had like Johnson kits. So that's what I was implying. There's literally a basketball. They play basketball there.
Makes sense. Okay, and we know that obviously in Charlottesville there was white nationalists and racists, actual racists, not just people that like to be labeled, people that like to scream at them for being racist. And then they caused violence as well. And there was a death there as well, obviously. And the issue is that, talking about bias, is that when the news look back on this, they do a very, very hard job at ignoring any of the violence that Antifa has done in the past, or even in Charlottesville, and they're very happy to focus on all the violence caused in much rarer instances, much fewer instances by essentially the flip side of the coin, which is whatever you want to call them, right-wing violent groups. But they get talked about in the media. The left-wing violent groups like Antifa don't get discussed, don't get blamed, don't get shamed, don't get even in some cases don't get as prosecuted.
Yeah. I mean, my whole thing about this that I can't get past is like the whole Nazi thing. Like, Nazis don't exist anymore. Like, there's no Nazis around. But,
you're correct.
So there's this whole we're throwing around this you're a Nazi. Like, there was no one at that rally that I could see that was there propagating.
You're correct, but there's it's kind of a two lane issue. There are no Nazis. That's absolutely true. But there are people who idolize the Nazis. Let's put it that way. So the people that maybe read Mein Kampf not as a historical text, but as a religious text, let's say, similar to the Quran. We'll come back to that. There's people who idolize the things that Germany and Hitler did. There's people who would, if asked, do you think that those things were just or moral, would say yes. There's those people, which colloquially people will say those people are Nazis. Obviously, they're not Nazis. You could argue they're Nazi sympathizers. Or you could maybe say they're neo-Nazis, or maybe not. But that's what people say when someone saying they're Nazis with me. The second track, though, is what you were saying, which is that if someone's just right-wing, it's handy to just call them a Nazi. And that is complete bullshit. So if someone is like, oh, I don't really want to pay for nationalized healthcare, it's like, yeah, you're right-wing. You're practically a Nazi. And then that is completely wrong. That is...
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But it's the whole, like you said before, this whole neo-Nazi movement. Like, let's just stick with that for a second.
Yeah.
Who are the neo-Nazis? They're fucking, by and large, Californian gangbangers who are white boys that have got together so they don't get fucking raped and beat up in prison. And they've created a power base there, and so that anyone that is involved in crime at the organised level of gangs in the States is going to go to prison at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So these gangs realise there's a lot of potential in forming some sort of identity, but it's not for the purpose of gassing the Jews. Right. It's for the purpose of selling meth and getting control over turf. Like, so that's what I mean. This whole there's Nazis, there's neo-Nazis. Like, fuck they're just criminals. They're only as dangerous as the crimes they commit.
Yeah, I agree with that. But my point was that there are people, like I said, who are Nazi sympathizers, and I'm not saying that they're not literal Nazis. So they're not running for government. They're not wanting to enact.
So the next step is then what impact?
Yeah.
What is the impact of those people? And it's for me, it's kind of like...
Well, to be blunt, the impact is about that of a Dodge, I guess.
Yeah. Oof. Beautiful. That was beautiful.
But in a non-pithy way,
do we actually know what happened there yet? Or is that... Because that's obviously still going through the courts.
That's still going through the courts. And that's fair.
And let's just be clear, I'm not saying that guy didn't intentionally kill someone, but I'm just gonna, we don't know the complete details.
Yeah, you should always wait. You should always wait
who he was, why he did it,
yeah,
the reasons that he did it.
Or he might walk like OJ. Who knows?
Was he wearing gloves?
Fingerless driver's gloves.
Has he started writing a book about how he would have drove that Dodge if he had been driving that Dodge?
So, my point is that there are people who, nonetheless, I wouldn't necessarily call neo-Nazis, because you're right. Really, the neo-Nazis as such are those kind of criminal gangs. Really, the people that are freaking other people out are what I would call Nazi sympathizers.
Yeah.
So you can call them whatever you want. Those people are I would say, pretty horrible, pretty morally and mentally deficient. And they do exist, but, and this is the thing, they're a very small amount of people. And the problem is that when people actually say Nazi, 99 times out of 100, what they're really describing is just a conservative.
Yeah. So the problem for me at this point is that when I see those, and I agree that about 100 people, if maybe more, whatever, you know, Antifa's there doing what they do, causing a shit show, you know, causing things to escalate like they do. Just let these people speak. Mm-hmm. Like, the problem with Antifa is that they think they have such a low expectation of other people. If they let these people stand on a platform, other people are going to sit there and go, well, seems like a great idea. Yeah. Let's segregate people. Let's discriminate against people because of the colour of their skin or whatever. Whereas I tend to take a bit more of I have a bit more faith in...
The collectivists, that's the problem.
Yeah, I take a bit more faith in people that, you know... Like, for example, I've told you this before, so in Australia you have the anti-racist movement, which was kind of like Antifa, but with less of a history. I'm sure they probably got I'm sure the people hang around in both circles. But they were reactionary to... what do they call the Australia First or some organisation of like people who were against Sharia law, who were against Islamization or whatever, how you ever say that, of schools and all this sort of stuff, and they went out there and they were just protesting peacefully, but then, you know, there was also obviously bike gangs at these things. And we know that bike gangs have a history of being sort of segregationists and only accepting, you know, white people into their organisations and all that sort of stuff, and they're bad people, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so the anti-racists come along, start attacking the people that are protesting peacefully, causes a shit show, riots in the street, the police get involved, they just start pepper spraying everyone, turns into this is a disaster. They finally got the leader of that, the sort of anti-Islam people, right? They got him onto a radio station. After all this shit had happened, everyone's yelling at each other, people are getting arrested, people are getting hurt. They finally get this guy onto a radio station. He talked for 20 minutes, and people just like, this guy is a fucking nutcase. Like, listen to him speak. Like, he was sort of like apocalypse. The apocalypse is coming. And if we don't do something now...
It will come.
It will come, you know. And it's like, if you just let that guy up on the stage in the first place, nationally, most people just go, he's an idiot.
Yeah.
Like, let him have his little pep rallies with whoever, the small amount of people that follow him. Let them march down their street with whatever sign. It's just, you know, but people feel like they got to go down to these things and protest and be anti-fascist and, you know, virtue signal and you know, to justify violence because of reasons. You know,
but I mean, there's three things I can say about that are all kind of distinct. The first one, the big one, is that's the problem with groups like groups like the Nazis back in the day, but also communists and Antifa, is that they're ultimately all collectivists. So they don't fundamentally have a belief in personal agency.
Yeah.
Which is ironic because they talk about freedom and all that kind of stuff.
Jobs.
Right. But they talk about rights and freedoms and all this and the other, but they don't actually operate that way. So their actions do not actually match up with their behavior, because they talk about being able to do what you want, say what you want, and be free, but actually you can't be free, because if you do those things which they don't like you to do, then they're quite happy to attack you. Not only that, but like you said, they actually don't believe in mental agency, individual agency, because like you said, they think that everyone's so stupid and like a sponge, like a dry sponge, that as soon as you put anything in front of them, they're too stupid and too uncritical to actually know what to think about that new subject or that position that's being put forward to them, and they'll automatically believe it. And like you said, they think that as soon as someone talks about something they disagree with, that surely everyone will get swayed to that cause. And that, for me, is a distinctly illiberal view.
Yeah, it is. And it's I agree with you. And it's that postmodernism creeping in there where, everything's a social construction, so there's no point listening to the other side of you because it's meaningless. So why engage with something?
Yeah, I mean, they're not even good postmodernists because you're right. The issue with that is that if everything's constructed, then how can you say? So this is the problem with and this is going into a completely different topic. This is the problem with postmodernism. If you say that everything's constructed, then that means that nothing's really empirically good either, or bad. Like it's all just constructed. Like we've all just decided that this is good and that's bad, and that's how we then set up the world to maximize that direction. And if we just set up different definitions, then we can just have a completely different world. So we can set up different definitions that slavery is great and that racism is great, and then we can just set up our world that way and everyone will be happy because we'll be all working towards the newly defined good things. And that's the problem that with...
Except the people that can't afford slaves.
Well, those are the slaves. So the issue is that with this kind of, like you were saying, like this whole postmodern thing, the problem with it is it has no end. It's a little bit like our Professor X's discussions on the foundations of the world. There's no end to it because you can't say that something's good and bad if you then say there's no objective good and bad, because really then you're just saying right now we think something's good and right now we think something's bad, in which case why are you so sure that I should or shouldn't be doing it if it's just temporary? And if it's just temporary, then why are those same people talking about tearing down monuments to Confederates and blah blah and other figures that may or may not have been involved in slavery? Because if everything's relative, if culture's all relative, if good and bad is all relative, and it's all just a social construct, well, those same people were good in their day by their own relative culture at the time. So why are they then now saying they should tear down the monuments? I mean, they were good people in their time. So they're not even good postmodernists. They're bad
selective postmodernists.
They're postmodernists with an agenda, and the agenda is they want to get power. Yeah, that's it. So they're a collectivist group that wants to use violence to get its control over other people. There is nothing good about Marxists, communists, any other type of socialist, ANTIFAT, and really a big chunk of everything that's then infesting from the extreme left into the more moderate left, the left that I actually would otherwise normally agree with, but I can't because at the moment they're far too swayed by their extremes.
Yeah.
So that's one thing to mention about that. The other two things are that it's crazy that there is this bias in the media that it's okay to go out and, it's okay to go out and attack conservatives, essentially. Because Charlottesville, as far as I can tell from what I've read, was basically a setup. It was basically a psyop. Because from what I've heard from the police, they were trying to keep the groups separated, which is what you do when you've got two, quite strongly opposed groups.
One of them's wearing
balaclavas and sticks, and the other one is also armed with sticks
and guns.
Yeah.
You know that people were open carrying, from what I heard, but no one got shot. Funny that, isn't it?
Well, that's because you either are responsible with guns or you're not. The gun's largely material. Yeah.
So the same with Dodgers, or?
I would say it's exactly the same with Dodgers. I'm pretty sure we're not going to ban Dodgers anytime soon, just because we had a death due to one. Although I don't know, maybe we'll ban vans of peace, but we'll see. So
there's dodges of diversity.
You can't dodge diversity.
Diversity is the dodge of strength.
It's yeah. Or you can't fend off justice. One or the other. So the issue is that I think that was a whole setup because they were keeping the groups separate, and from what I've understood from the police, the ones that have gone public, they were told to stand down at a point when the groups were right next to each other and very, very heated up in the middle of the day. And at that point, they actually started fighting with each other and were able to get into proximity with each other, which to me would be the complete opposite of what riot police should be doing at an event. They should be separating the groups, keeping them separate, avoiding them contact with each other and getting them further away from each other.
Yeah.
And literally on every one of those issues, the police did the opposite. And for me, this is not proof in of itself, but if I had to make an estimation, I would say that it was a setup. It was a setup by the mayor, who is himself very, very much on the far left, very much on the progressive side, from what I've read.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to draw a comparison to... Have you watched many, like, football hooligan videos?
Yeah,
so if you look at, like Red Star Belgrade in Poland,
mm-hmm.
and you look at the way that the police operate at sort of Belgrade games and stuff like that, like, you have got groups or gangs of football supporters
mm-hmm.
Who, as soon as they see each other, they're hurling bricks, bottles, flares, cocktails, whatever they can get their hands on,
they get
at each other. And if the police can keep actively, directly violent, like as soon as we see you, we're going to enact violence. If they can keep them apart for the most part,
mm-hmm.
but these guys can't keep a couple of a bunch of university students and paid protesters away from country bumpkins. Like
It was also interesting because it was fun to see a lot of the messages and the tweets from the left, basically saying these people are all inbred, these people are all stupid, these people are all scum, and my thoughts are, well, okay, they might be.
Actually, like pretty well-to-do.
Well, no, I'm just saying some of them might be, and that's fine. But it's like, well, if you had the right tweeting things like that, saying, look at all these left people, look at how dirty and disgusting they are. They'd be
kicked off Twitter.
And so my point is not that either side is doing themselves justice. My point is that either side in that situation is wrong, but only one side gets any censure. Only one side gets punished. The other side gets a free pass.
Yeah.
Free pass. And that's the problem. So I take a step back. I would always consider myself... I've always considered myself liberal, not necessarily left-wing, but liberal. And I would be happy to associate with people on the left wing if they were acting rationally. And I think most people on both sides would say that. They would say, happy to associate with either side as long as they're acting rationally. Problem is the way the media and the government are acting isn't rational right now, and it is biased, and it makes it very difficult for example, for me to actually have any faith in what people on the left say, because I just think that they're all pushing their own agenda. And maybe they think the same thing about the right, that's fine, but then there's your partisanship, there's your problem.
Yeah. I mean, that's a very American-centric sort of view. Do you think it's the same in the UK or in other countries?
No, I think in the UK it's relatively entrenched with a kind of Labour-Tory divide, relatively speaking, and there's a lot more... There's not as many centrists in the UK. There is a little bit more of a... There's been less of a... So Tony Blair coming in definitely pulled the Labour Party away from supporting Labour, which was terrible. This is where I would say actually I've got quite a lot of sympathies for the left, because I do think there needs to be a voice on the left. But he pulled Labour away from the left and really towards a kind of weird neocon, centrist, bad version of the Tories that then messed up a whole load of other things politically. And that's caused a problem in British politics. It's also meant that a lot of people in Labour didn't have anyone to vote for, essentially, because they didn't have a Labour Party. And then what you've got now is Corbyn, who also isn't really a Labour Party, but he's rather than being centrist and rubbish, he's not really gone back to left, he's gone right the way over back to far left. And that's the problem. You don't have a normal, sensible left party that basically just cares a little bit about tax, a little bit about welfare, and a little bit about unions. You've got someone like Corbyn now who's like, everything should be free. Everything needs to get taxed. We need to get rid of the nuclear deterrent, even though, as you can tell by its name, it deters nuclear wars. Yeah. Just stuff like that. And it's like, okay, well, we had the Labour Party destroyed, and then now we've got something much worse. as far as where the people are, the Conservatives kind of did that in the last election. They went from being Conservatives to just being like a mockery of themselves, wanting to legalize ivory trade and dumb stuff like that, to the point where normal Conservatives are like, yeah, I can't vote for you. Like, what are you doing? So in the UK, it's slightly different. There's less centrist, sure.
Yeah, so why don't we see groups like ANTIFA really springing up too much in places like the UK and other countries? Like, what's going on in America that is? Because you said before,
it's the colleges. I think it's the colleges. I think America's further along the cusp. That's all it is. They're further along the cusp. They're more of a revolutionary nation in themselves anyway. So I think there's a personality trait.
And by colleges, you mean the electoral colleges, or you mean the universities?
Universities.
Yeah.
They're what they call colleges. The universities. Yeah. So they're just a slightly different country mentally speaking anyway, personality speaking. But on top of that, it's their universities or their colleges. They're so far along. They're maybe another 5-10 years ahead in terms of behind, in terms of their devolution to far left ideologues in colleges, which means that they've got a lot more pressure on young minds from the colleges, a higher proportion of, very left wing, very far left professors feeding basically indoctrination to the students. But on top of that, you've also just got foot soldiers, because not only do you have the higher pressure, but you've had that higher pressure for maybe the last 5 years now, and we're kind of seeing this sort of final crop of highly ideology driven, highly kind of collectivized, brainwashed foot soldiers coming out of these colleges. I think that's all it is. I think if you were to wait another 10 years, you could probably see something very similar in the UK. I don't think we're immune from it. It's just slightly further on the curve.
Yeah,
that's my view.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's trying to just consume more and more of their media, and I obviously watch stuff back in Australia, and I watch stuff here, and just the conversation that's not had over there is in stark contrast to there's still obviously divides, as we say, here and Australia, but it is something uniquely different about the USA that at the moment, that how do they come back from it then is the
other thing about the US is it's massive.
Yeah.
No, seriously, like you have more room for extremes, because the UK's 60 million people, Australia's like 30-40 million people, America's like 250, pushing on 300 when you throw in some of the hidden statistics about whether or not you've got however many immigrants in there, illegal immigrants. So it's more like comparing the whole of Europe. So it'd be more like comparing the most right-leaning conservative country in Europe, and then comparing it to the most left-leaning country in Europe, and then smashing the two together.
What would those be?
It's a good question. Well, either way, they insist on doing it with the European Union, don't they?
Germany and
Germany
and Poland.
Yeah, well, it would probably be yeah. Have they ever had problems with each other in the past? I can't think of it now.
Has Germany ever had problems with anyone?
They had problems with the Austrians.
The Austrians.
What do they call them? They call them
the undesirables.
The undesirables. The Ashkenazi Eastern Europeans.
Right.
Yeah. They had a scuffle with them back in the day. It was more like football violence, right? So probably I'd say the most left leaning is probably going to be either France.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, France.
Left leaning.
Yeah, France is nuts, man. France is nuts. France.
Even like Denmark or.
Yeah, well.
Sweden,
believe it or not, Sweden aren't nearly as left-leaning as you'd think. They are and they aren't. I mean, this is the problem. Like, none of these countries are monoliths.
France and Netherlands seem very liberal. Like
France is not liberal,
isn't it?
No, I mean, I know what you mean. They have that air of nonchalance, maybe.
Yeah.
But actually, they're highly collectivist.
Right.
Highly collectivist. I mean, they've got some of the highest. People joke about that, Sweden being very socialist, but actually France has some of the highest taxes in Europe, not Sweden. So it depends.
Well, being a cunt doesn't make you a leftist, does it?
My point is, it depends on the metric you pick. Sweden's probably got the most obviously left-wing policies enacted, which is probably a fair comment. It depends what metric you use, but yeah, it'd be like France or Sweden or Denmark. and then putting them, just forcefully mixing the populations and having those populations to then play nice with each other with like a Poland or a Hungary or Switzerland. Switzerland's not in the EU, but like a Switzerland population, and they wouldn't get on. They just wouldn't get on.
So I mean, if we can try and sort of like bring it back to the board a little bit, what do you think the end game of anti-fat errorism is?
Yeah, well, that's interesting. What is the end game for what's the end game for social Marxism?
Like,
because they're just dumb foot soldiers. As much as they like to scream, Nazi this and alt-right that.
Question: is there a Metzger behind Antifa? You know who I mean when I say. You know who Metzger is?
Metzger's
the whether he's as influential now as he has been in the past, but he was essentially the mouthpiece for all the neo-Nazi gangs. So where the neo-Nazi gangs were just, like I said, just gangsters, gangbangers, criminals, joining gangs to be safe in prison, blah blah blah.
Well,
he was the one that orchestrated all the websites and propaganda and all that sort of stuff. So
I guess George Soros.
Is he? I mean, that's what people like to brandy about. But I mean, has anyone ever looked into the structure like this?
Put it this way:
how is it organised? How is Antifa organised?
Well, put it this way: he does fund a lot of these groups. Yeah. So he's obviously a billionaire, so he's not going to like actually set up the website. Maybe in the same way.
Yeah.
But he funds a lot of these groups like BLM.
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter. Grey Lives Don't.
Yeah. But we sort of know who the leaders of Black Lives Matter are.
No, that's my point, though. That's kind of my point, that they are a Hydra organisation, if you will. So yeah, you'll have BLM and you'll have its leaders, but the fact that they've got funding and structure and setup isn't because of them. It's because of someone else bankrolling and instructing them, which would be the Soros type. So I think this is where we go off into Alex Jones territory, and we talk about a new world order essentially, because it is slightly more grand in vision in that sense, that it's got further, bigger roots and more money behind it.
I mean, potentially.
Well, I mean,
there's lots of other reasons.
Well, my point is, a lot of this stuff is factual in that we can trace the money going into these.
Yeah, I'm not denying that, but why he's donating the money, there could be.
Well, I'm sure it's it's out of the goodness of his own heart.
Yeah,
sure it is.
Well, could be.
Bill's too busy saving all the Africans with AIDS vaccines, so Soros is like, oh well, if I can't save Africa, I can at least save Americans.
Bill's just undoing.
Even though Eisenhower already did that.
Bill Gates is just trying to undo everything that Mother Teresa did.
Yeah, gosh, that's a good topic. Mother Teresa,
and her fucking anti-condom campaign.
Friend or foe, yeah. Yeah. She comforts you with one hand whilst taking the rubber away with the other. Yeah. Classic. So, let's bring it back to the board. What were we talking about? The end game. I'd love to know what the end game is, because what is the end game to essentially?
And I guess I guess when you were saying like New World Order and obviously like getting into Alex Jones territory, I guess what I was saying is, is Soros doing this out of some sort of like greater good that he is seeing, or is he just is he doing it because it's an enjoyable way to spend his money, or is he doing it for selfish reasons, which you could say that a New World Order would benefit him in some way,
right?
But or is it a conscious New World Order? Is it just like we make more business when these viewpoints are propagated and these points are squashed? I don't know, because
I think that there is an argument to be made about the whole New World Order from an economic perspective, but that almost misses the forest for the trees, because to come back round, when you've got moral relativism, it's like maybe he thinks it's good, maybe he doesn't, maybe his good is different to ours, maybe it isn't. I mean, you with that, as soon as you go down that line of thinking, you end up in some weird grey areas that don't make any sense. From their perspective. Let me give you an example. So where is all this heading? Well, I don't know where they want it to go, because for me, I'd have to be able to read their mind. But I can tell you where it probably is going to go. You're going to have the West becoming shittier. Because of course you will. Because you're going to be... Even if you fill the West with nothing but more people as good as the people in the West, which I think is debatable and wrong, but even if you fill the West with all this crazy immigration with people that are just as good as Westerners, you'll still have a more congested and more cramped living, a more congested and cramped Western country. So even if, best case scenario, you're still going to have what I believe will be a lowering of the quality of life. But here you go. What does that mean to somebody who maybe has a very different view on morality? Well, they might think that him lowering a bunch of people in the West standard of living by 20%, if he can increase the standard of living of somebody coming in from the, from the third world by 10%, they might think of that as actually a good thing overall, because they've improved the level of suffering
yeah.
of the lowest of the group, which is that kind of regression to the mean question. So who knows what they think? That it could be literally that. They could be knowingly doing this, knowing that it will harm certain people, but in their minds it's rationalized and it makes sense and it's going to be good for everybody, good for the world.
Tailing off the extremities,
Kumbaya and all that. And so to us, we're just like, this is dumb, it's not helpful, it's monstrous, it's destroying the societies and the communities and the history and the structures that have existed here for hundreds of years, and they don't care. Oh, no, they do care, they do care, but they actively want that to happen, but because they think it's just...
So what do we think that mean looks like then? What's the mean?
The meme?
Mean, not meme. Mean. What's the mean?
I don't know what you mean.
India?
What? No, it won't be India. No, but it'll probably...
I'm trying to draw an example of...
Yeah, no, it'll probably be like present-day Bulgaria.
What does that look like?
Oh, you're not travelled enough. Mister, I travelled halfway around the world to see your shitty country.
I mean, I'd go, but, it's not often you meet someone that go, yeah, been to Bulgaria.
Been to better places. No, what does it look like? I mean, it looks like... gosh, how to describe it? It looks mildly better than post-perestroika Bulgaria. It's a little grimy, a little rough around the edges. There's not quite enough money to go around. There's what you can see as the substructure of civilization there, but the money, the prosperity quotient has not met the civilization quotient, and it's exposed the bare ribs of humans, basically human morality, where the gap between civilization and prosperity has left that exposed. So there's this, to put it another way, there's people who they know how they should probably behave, but they're too economically stressed to actually behave as well as they know they should.
So if we're trying to, let's just say the end game is to bring this regression to the mean, to bring everything close to the mean, what's the risk of then lowering the mean?
Guaranteed.
Yeah,
I mean most
that's my sort of fear about it. Sort of like this idea of trying to get close to the mean is actually going to lower the mean, which is actually going to increase the suffering of the people at the bottom in the end. Well, in the long run,
Yeah, I mean, let's put it this way. Most people will say that people in the West, young people in the West, will not have a standard of living as good as their parents. Most economists that I've read have essentially said some form of that. And when you talk about the third world, what they say is actually over the last 20, 30, 40 years, huge amounts of people have been lifted out of poverty in the third world. So really, there's already been an improvement for the lower end of society, and the top end of society is going down. So really, you're already going towards a mean anyway.
That's the cognitive bias, isn't it? That people don't actually see that things are improving. They're not looking at the bigger picture. They're just looking at, I saw a homeless guy on the street. Sure. That's terrible. That means the world's unfair. Or
I saw a homeless guy today.
Yeah, that guy didn't get a job because of the colour of his skin. I presume. So that means there's no equality. You know.
Well, what really kills me is this story about how part of the Australian government did a blind selection process. So they made it so that for that department you had to hire based on just seeing the bare details of the CV of the person. You couldn't know any identifying features of the person before you chose to hire them. And the hope of this was to improve, I think in particular, female representation in that part of the government. Mm-hmm. And they implemented the system, and they actually found that they were actually hiring even less women. And the thing that really kind of blew my mind, which is why I think that it's
You're saying that men with their higher earnings can afford to pay more money for people to write their CVs?
I'm saying that clearly there was actually a bias towards women, that if the sexism there was against men. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So once you take out the gender and you actually base the CV on its merit, then
actually more men were getting hired. But that's not really the point. The crazy thing, the thing that completely blows it all out of the water for me, and we're talking about kind of which way are things going. When they had this happen, they actually stopped the blind trial. And they went back to having CVs that have the sex of the person on them. Which, to me, is just beyond the pale. Because at that point, you said that having the sex taken off the CV is fairer.
Well, it's just that...
But then you said, no, we're going to go back to it being unfair because we didn't have it unfair in the way we wanted. So, it's just... It's open sexism. And yet, it's allowed to slide. You know, it'll be like someone saying, "Oh, well, we're gonna remove."
Because it comes.
It'd be like somebody saying, "We're gonna stop affirmative action, not because we don't think we need it anymore, but because we want less black people in work." No one would ever entertain that thought. That would be, if you suggest that as a politician, you'd get lynched.
That's what I was actually going to say. That's exactly what I was going to say. It comes down to self-interest. No one's, they saw that results happening, and they're like, "There's no way we're gonna present these findings and make this recommendation because that's career suicide. We'll never get another job again." and so it just comes back to self-interest, really.
Well, it comes back to self-interest. It also comes back just to what I was saying, which is it's illogical. It's illogical.
Well, it is that.
It's immoral and illogical, and you can't rationalize it because you can't. They'll then say,
it's not about rational. Well, the way they're not rationalizing. They're saying, well.
At least
everything's wrong about this, but if I go down this path, it's going to be bad for me. Not even though it could be, the right way to go about things, it's going to have negative consequences for me. And it's kind of ironic when all the ANTIFA and all these organisations are going for social justice, yet they're actually promoting self-interest because they're making it too hard for people to actually do what's right and fair.
Yeah, I mean the thing that's nuts is, like I said, is that if you can't have that conversation, you can't have somebody saying that we want to do policy X because it's going to improve a situation, it's going to make it fairer, and then you say, following that, you say, well, actually, we're not going to do that because it didn't push it in the direction we wanted. And it's like, well, okay, so you're not actually interested in fairness. And they'll say, oh, yes, we are, but that's obviously a lie. And it's like, okay, well, you're lying and you're not interested in fairness, and yet that is, you claim, the center of your movement. My point is, you can't deal with that.
Yeah.
You can't, literally, not like emotionally deal with it. Like, you can't hold a discourse and have an operation with that person because they're lying to you and they're obviously trying to be unfair. So there is no way for you to cooperate with that. And yet that's where we're finding ourselves.
That's the cognitive dissonance, though.
That's the cognitive dissonance. But you said, where is this headed? It's headed off a cliff because you can't deal with these people. If someone's going to lie to you and if someone's going to be openly against fairness, actually against fairness, and just pro their agenda, then the only thing you can do is say no.
Gas them. What do we do with people? What do we do with people that we can't do anything with?
Well, usually you put them in prison.
For lying.
No, not for lying. Your question was, what do you do with people that you can't do anything with? Well, usually we put them in prison.
Yeah.
Fire them, I guess, if you're talking specifically about the job circumstance. My point is, there isn't anything you can do with them. The irony is palpable because they're the same people who will tell you straight-faced that everything's sexist, and yet they themselves are obviously sexist. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, if you can't deal with them, if you can't rationalize them, if you can't talk to them about how hypocritical they are, and they won't change, they won't listen, there isn't anything you can do. You can ignore them, you can say no, you can fire them. They are the actual racists that they claim to see everywhere else but themselves, which is the nuts thing. And the thing they want to do with those sexists is get rid of them. Well, ironically, they're the ones that need to be got rid of. They're the ones that need to go out of policy making, out of academia, out of business. The Google thing is got that written all over it. The thing that blew me away for the Google thing, same thing like with this thing, with this trial of removing sex from the CVs. The thing that blew me away about Google is that they had asked participants of the, I think it was unconscious bias training, they had asked participants to submit a written response to that training. So what James Damore actually did wasn't even off his own back. They had literally asked participants to write back and give their own thoughts. And
so that we can fire.
So that we can then fire them. Exactly. So you're literally making ideological traps for people to then speak their opinion freely and openly, like you should be able to, backed up by science, and then you fire them for it, which is insane because not only is it underhanded, so it's crazy from that perspective. It's pathological. It's like psychopathic. It's like you're setting people up to fail behind their back. But that's, if those people are absolutely not going to change their behavior, I don't mean James Damore, I mean the social Marxists, then the only thing you can do is fire them, get rid of them. And unfortunately, there's a hell of a lot of them. Again, because they're just getting pumped out by the universities.
Scary. That's I've never seen that article before.
Good old Sargon. Yeah, Oz. Yeah, good old Oz. Yeah, at the forefront. If it's not Sweden, it's Australia, right?
Yeah, jeez.
It's actually not giving the results. It's giving a lot of the announcements for the trial, but not giving the results of the trial, which is
the ABC News at its best.
Which is right up there on our board.
It's also the ABC is like the BBC of Australia. The ABC is meant to be public funded, unbiased media, but it's and tries to play itself off as centrist, but it's not.
Oh, this might be it. This might be it. Yeah,
making things worse. See, the ABC says blind recruitment trial to boost gender equality makes things worse. So
it's that subjectivism. It didn't make things worse, did it? It made things fairer.
It revealed the truth.
It revealed the truth. It made things fairer, but fairer meant more men, which is wrong.
Yeah.
Because being male is wrong. Yeah.
Who wrote that article?
I believe that's ABC.
No.
Personally, Henry Bellot.
Yeah. Well, Henry the idiot.
Yeah. A measure aimed at boosting female employment in the workforce may actually be making it worse, a major study has found. Is it making it worse, or is it making it proportional? Proportional to their merits, which is what happens in a meritocracy. Do these people know what a meritocracy is? Let's look it up. Let's look up meritocracy, because you would think from the left these days that the meritocracy just doesn't even exist as a concept. There you go, meritocracy, noun, see racism. That's what it says.
Government or the holding of power by people selected according to merit.
AKA
holding
racism.
Wow.
AKA white power didn't do nothing.
A ruling or influential class of educated or able people.
Mm. Well, that's what we want. We want the people that are not able to rule in power, and preferably without the ability to influence things.
Yeah. So I mean,
that's what you want from your rulers.
So I mean, how would we summarise where we are with Antifa?
Antifa are a terrorist group that openly deploy violence to harass people in the centre and right into following a highly collectivist, drone-like ideology coming from essentially from Marxism, which is communism, which is second in deaths related to communism and socialism, second in deaths only to Islam, the Great Devourer. And so a inherently terrible ideology. And Antifa are the stupid, unwitting foot soldiers from cozy middle-class suburban neighborhoods, pumped out by universities to help that socialist agenda be promoted in the US. And as both stupid and a terrorist organization, they need to be clamped down on, both by individuals in society, socially, not physically, and by the police, physically. That's where we stand on Antifa. That's where I stand on Antifa.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with you.
Crack them over the head with nightclubs.
Or bike locks, you know.
Oh, bike locks, yeah. The weapon of peace.
Choice. Bike locks of diversity.
Did you see about that article about Antifa where they said they were achieving peace through violence? Did you see this?
No, I didn't, but that sounds like an amazing article.
Yeah.
Almost as good as that last one we just read.
Antifa, peace. So they since changed the article title because it was stupid.
Too revealing.
But unmask. Yeah, here you go. So they've already changed. CNN wrote this. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The Collectivist News Network. Yeah.
Is that what it stands for?
No, I think it's Cox.
Cox.
But, collectivist sounds better.
Why is there a Republican in the middle of those two Antifas?
I don't know what's happening right now to the...
She's a fearless survivor of what?
Of
survivor of privilege.
Yeah, I survived privilege.
I survived privilege.
So this article had it changed. Unmasking the leftist Antifa movement originally was called Unmasking the Leftist Antifa Movement, Peace Through Violence. And they changed the title. Here you go. CNN changes headline. It says, after claiming Antifa uses violence. Well, it's not really they claiming it, is it? I mean, Antifa openly use violence and it's been on TV for the last year. But okay, let's equivocate some more. CNN published an article Friday titled Unmasking the Leftist Antifa Movement. Activists seek peace through violence. But the next day changed the headline to exclude any mention of the group using violence. I think what's more telling isn't that they removed that part. What's more telling is that they think that there's no irony in saying... Because it wasn't written ironically. It was written honestly.
Yeah.
They think that it's totally okay to go for peace through violence. Which is like saying it's okay to go through slavery to get to prosperity, right?
Well,
that one's bad. Sorry, no, that was bad.
That's what the Democrats did, didn't they?
Well, yeah, the Democrats have never been this angry since we took their slaves away. Yeah. I just think it's nuts that no one realised that the Democratic Party stands for slavery. And I use the present tense because the Democratic Party still has their slaves because they rely on the black voting bloc to get into power.
Yeah.
And they keep them there by giving them the metaphorical peanuts of today, which is welfare state benefits. So the Democrats still have their slaves. They're just welfare slaves rather than plantation slaves. Largely because the US doesn't even have plantations anymore.
Yeah, but they give free abortions, so,
Well, good.
Keep the slaves happy.
Keep the slaves happy.
And not propagating.
Well, the person really that talks really well on this is Thomas Sowell.
How do you spell that last name?
Sowell.
Right.
There is. So you might notice that Thomas Sowell isn't exactly the Aryan ideal. So he's got some...
Well, he's wearing glasses.
Exactly. He's got some locus on the African American situation. And he speaks about it very, very straightforward. He says that ultimately the worst thing that's happened to African Americans over the last century has been the destruction of the family unit. And the destruction of the family unit always has poverty coming with it, whether it's for any race, any group, any country. You destroy the family unit, poverty follows. And the African Americans have had a huge amount of destruction of the family unit through welfare, through policies, through everything else.
I think that it's happening to other populations as well.
It's happening to other populations as well. But his point is. But his point is.
I meant that we aren't learning the lessons of what's happened.
We aren't. No, we're absolutely not. Well, even African Americans aren't, because they're then blaming racism or the whites or whatever else. And he says no. It's the fact that policies set up by the government to help, and there goes that pathological approach to policy making, where you try and do one thing when it's wrong, almost designed to be
a parent to people,
right? And his point is that actually the best thing that you could do to a lot of black families would be to cut their welfare and make them have family units again, not single parents. Make them work for their money, not depend on the state, and make them have the impulse, the inclination, the drive to actually better themselves, which, and I'm not saying that about black people, I'm saying that about everybody. We're talking about black people now, African Americans, but about everybody, you want to have that impetus to improve yourself.
Yeah, I mean, you can draw comparisons to Australia as well.
Mm-hmm.
The parentification in Australian history has been disastrous, and it's a lot more recent than the issues that African Americans have faced in America. So,
yeah,
well,
it's all different. Like I said, it's all just different curves.
Yeah,
it's all different curves, but ultimately the curves seem to be the same. Yeah. Because, and that shouldn't be surprising, if we believe that the reason these outcomes are coming to happen is because of the policies being set up, then it shouldn't be surprising that if you set up those policies somewhere else, eventually those outcomes will come as well. So, but he's very good on this. He's really good on this. He's done a lot of talks, and a lot of that stuff is on YouTube, where he describes in very good detail, much better detail than I can do it, about the facts behind what policy was enacted when, what effect it had, what were the numbers, how was it measured.
Yeah, so he's been tracking this stuff for a long time.
Yeah, he's been tracking this stuff.
Check him out.
Yeah,
Listeners,
like you can
check
see
him out.
Yeah, you can see he's
Thomas Sowell. Sowell.
Yeah,
Thomas Sowell.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, he's 87 now, so he's obviously been around for a while. So he's
family still intact.
He's divorced 8 times. Each time a beautiful wedding.
All right. I think we've dissected the shit out of ANTIFAT.